If you've spent any time at all scrolling through, the more dramatic corners of nature photography online, you have definitely seen them.
Oh, yeah.
These haunting, unforgettable images of animals, birds, bats, things like that. They're perfectly preserved, almost caught mid-movement, but they're coated in this pale, kind of ashy mineral shell. They just look like statues.
Right, like little monuments to instant death.
Yeah.
And those visceral photographs, I mean, they've fueled this really powerful modern myth,
Yeah.
the legend of Lake Natron.
Lake Natron.
Yeah, this alkaline lake in northern Tanzania that gets sensationalized all over the world as the lake that turns animals to stone.
Have you even heard it called Nature's Medusa?
That's the one. It gets this very appropriate dose of sensationalism.
It sounds like pure horror movie stuff, a blood red lake so chemically extreme that it just instantly petrifies anything that touches it. It's a compelling story, chilling and very simple.
It is compelling, but, well, it's a massive simplification. So our mission in this deep dive is to take those stunning images and really peel back the layers to get to the scientific reality of Lake Natron, which, frankly, is way more astonishing.
Okay.
We want to get at that core paradox. How can a place be so lethal, but at the same time be the single most vital oasis for an entire species?
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with the setting. This is not some gentle mountain lake, I'm guessing. Where are we in the world?
We are in a geologically, well, a very volatile and extreme region. We're in the East African Rift Valley in northern Tanzania, right up near the Kenyan border. And crucially, the lake sits in the shadow of an active volcano, Old Lengai.
Right, and that volcano's name, it comes up every single time Lake Natron is discussed, because it's basically the engine driving this whole strange ecosystem, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Right.
Old Lengai is, it's unlike almost any other active volcano on Earth. It erupts something called carbonatite lava. Yeah, it's a type of rock that's extremely rich in sodium and potassium carbonates. And just for context, right now, it's the only active volcano on the planet that erupts this specific type of mineral-rich lava.
So that uniqueness is the absolute foundation for Lake Natron.
Precisely. The lake is what's called a soda lake. So
Yeah.
it's saline, it's alkaline, and this is the key part. It has no outlet to the sea,
Ah, so the closed system.
a closed basin. So the streams and springs that feed it, they flow down from the volcano and the surrounding land, carrying all those dissolved salts, the remnants of that carbonatite lava, straight into the lake.
And everything that flows in stays in. The hot environment must just take over from there.
That's exactly it. It's a pretty big lake, maybe 57 kilometers long, but it's incredibly shallow, often less than 3 meters deep.
So shallow.
Yeah, so under that intense, hot, dry climate of the Rift Valley, the water just evaporates like crazy. And that evaporation concentrates all those dissolved minerals, creating this dense chemical soup. It's rich in sodium carbonate and bicarbonate, the minerals that were historically called natron.
So it's less like a lake and more like a giant chemical battery. Let's talk about the conditions. What are we actually dealing with chemically?
The chemistry is just staggering. The lake's pH level is hyperalkaline. It ranges from 10 up to 12.
Wow. To give people some context, what's that comparable to?
That's comparable to household lye or bleach or ammonia.
So immediately caustic.
Instantly lethal to almost all freshwater creatures and fish. For any animal that's not adapted to it, if you have prolonged contact, it will cause severe chemical burns to your skin and eyes. You cannot safely touch this water for long.
And then you have to layer the temperature on top of that chemical bath.
Right. The surface water temperatures regularly get over 40 degrees Celsius. That's over 100 Fahrenheit.
Wow.
And the really shallow areas along the shore, the temperature can shoot up to 60 degrees Celsius.
60 degrees. That's dangerously hot. You can't touch that for more than a second. So the lake is inhospitable on two fronts, the heat and the chemistry.
It really is a hot, salty cauldron. But that brings us to one of the lake's other famous features, the color. You see these photos from above, and the water is blood red or deep orange.
Yeah, which is often misinterpreted as, a sign of pollution or something toxic.
But it's not. In fact, that dramatic color is one of the most visible signs of life in the lake.
So what's causing it?
It comes from pigmented halophilic, which just means salt-loving microorganisms. These are specialized cyanobacteria and algae that absolutely thrive in these brutal alkaline conditions. They produce huge amounts of these things called carotenoid pigments, sort of like a natural sunblock, and those pigments are what turn the dense brine that vivid red or orange color.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me, where we move beyond that myth of instant death. We've just established this place as a chemical death trap, a cauldron of lye and heat, and yet It's a crucial oasis for life. That's a huge paradox.
It is. And the success of the life here, it's all based on specialization. The entire ecosystem is built on that microbial foundation we just talked about. Those incredibly efficient halophilic bacteria, species like spirulina, they tolerate the extreme alkalinity, they form these dense blooms, and that creates this massive food supply in what is otherwise a pretty barren landscape.
And that food supply, that sustains one of the most spectacular bird populations in the world.
Yes. Lake Natron is globally recognized as the single most important regular breeding site for the lesser flamingo
The single most important.
in the world. In a good season, this one lake can support up to 75% of the entire global population of lesser flamingos.
75%. That is an unbelievable level of dependency on one single chemically volatile place. I mean, if something goes wrong there, the entire species feels it.
It really highlights how perfect their adaptation is. That caustic water, it acts as a, well, as a natural moat or a fortress of salt. When the water levels are just right, the flamingos build their mud mound nests on these little islands and mud flats that rise just above the water.
And that super high pH water all around them gives them total predator protection.
Exactly. Most land predators, hyenas, jackals, and even other birds that aren't adapted, they just can't cross that wide expanse of caustic hot water to get to the nests. It's too corrosive. It's too dangerous.
So the very thing that makes the lake deadly to outsiders makes it an impenetrable nursery for their chicks.
That's it. It's phenomenal. But the adult flamingos, they still have to be in that water constantly to feed. How do they handle a pH 12 environment?
Yeah, good question.
They have these amazing physiological adaptations. They've got special glands in their heads, salt glands that filter out excess salt, and they just excrete it through their nostrils. And their legs and feet have this tough, protective skin. It's almost like scale armor, and it resists the caustic effects of the brine they're constantly wading through.
And what about their famous color? I'm assuming that connects back to the chemistry somehow.
It's a direct link to their diet. Their brilliant pink color comes directly from those rich carotenoid pigments they eat.
From the algae.
From the specialized halophilic algae and cyanobacteria, the very same organisms that turn the lake blood red. It's a completely closed-loop system. The extreme chemistry supports the life that provides the food and the shelter, and that food provides the color.
Okay, so we've covered the life. Now let's go back and tackle that myth of instant petrification head on. We know the lake doesn't literally turn animals to rock, but the photos of the preserved animals are real. So what is actually happening to those bodies?
Yeah, it's so important that we define the process correctly for you. What happens at Natron is calcification and mummification. It is not petrification.
Okay, what's the difference?
Petrification is a geological process. It takes thousands, millions of years. It's when organic material is slowly replaced by minerals until it becomes a fossil, actual rock.
So what we're seeing is rapid preservation.
Extremely rapid. The high pH, the high salt content, and the heat. They create an environment that just strips away soft tissue and fat, and, most importantly, it dehydrates the body. And dehydration stops decay because it removes the water that the putrefying bacteria need to survive.
And I remember you mentioned that the mineral natron was used in ancient times for this exact thing.
It's where the term comes from. The ancient Egyptians relied on natron, that natural mix of sodium carbonate and bicarbonate, to dry out the organs in the body during their mummification process. It was nature's perfect embalming agent. Lake Natron does the same thing, just naturally turning organic remains into these dry, preserved specimens.
And then the dissolved sodium carbonate in the lake coats the remains.
That's the calcification part. As the water evaporates off the body, those salts precipitate out of the liquid and they crystallize, forming this hard, rigid shell or crust over everything.
So the bodies keep their original shape.
Exactly, because they're so quickly and completely dried out and then they're encased in this mineral shell. They look hard, dry, often coated in white or gray crystals. Preserved, absolutely. Petrified, no.
Which brings us back to those viral photos by Nick Brandt. Because the illusion of them being frozen mid-flight or mid-perch is what really sold that whole instant death story.
Precisely. What Brandt did was he found these already dead, already mineral-encrusted bodies that had washed up along the lake's edges. They were preserved, sure, but they were just lying on the ground. Not a very dramatic photo.
So the key to those haunting images was
Staging. He reposed them. He carefully placed the carcasses on branches, on rocks, on props to make them look alive, or at least frozen in their last moment of life. It was an artistic choice, and a very powerful one.
But the popular narrative completely lost that nuance. It just jumped to the conclusion that the lake instantly killed and froze them in these dynamic poses.
A classic case where the simple, dramatic myth travels way faster than the detailed scientific truth. The lake isn't primarily a mass grave. It's a specialized, functioning, and highly vulnerable ecosystem where extraordinary life exists right on the edge of chemical possibility.
And that extreme chemistry, the very thing that gives the lake its uniqueness, its color, its flamingos, its preservation powers, that also makes it a target for industry.
And that's the critical pivot point. It's why Natron's future is so precarious. Because the lake is so rich in sodium carbonate, or soda ash, it's seen as a massive resource for extraction.
And what do we use soda ash for?
It's an essential industrial commodity.
Yeah.
It's used all over the world in manufacturing glass, different chemicals, and even common household detergents.
So the very chemical elements that create the Flamingo Fortress are exactly what commercial interests want to strip away. What has the threat looked like?
Over the last couple of decades, there have been these repeated, serious proposals to build large-scale soda ash extraction plants right there. The sheer scale of the infrastructure you'd need, roads, processing facilities, just a huge increase in human activity. It all poses a massive threat.
What would that kind of mining actually do to the flamingos? Would it kill them?
Not directly, no, but it would destroy their ability to breed. To get the soda ash out, these operations would have to alter the water flow, maybe lower the overall water level. If you change that crucial balance of water inflow and evaporation, you change the salinity and alkalinity levels.
Which would kill off the algae they feed on.
It would kill their food source, and it would destroy their nesting sites. The flamingos need those high salt concentrations to precipitate and form the solid crystalline mud crusts they build their nests on. If you disrupt the chemistry, those stable nesting platforms just won't form.
So no stable nesting sites means no breeding.
And that puts 75% of the world's lesser flamingo population at risk.
Wow. So the mining operation wouldn't even need to physically destroy the nests. They just have to change the water slightly, and the lake loses its entire function as a fortress.
That's the vulnerability. And thankfully, this critical importance has been recognized internationally. Lake Natron is designated as a Ramsar wetland of international importance.
For those of us who aren't familiar, what does that designation actually mean?
Well, the Ramsar Convention is an international treaty for wetland conservation. So being designated a Ramsar site means the global community formally recognizes Natron's incredible ecological value, in this case, specifically because it's the dominant breeding ground for lesser flamingos.
And that designation must provide a pretty significant layer of international pressure against commercial projects.
It certainly raises the profile of the conflict, and we've seen positive pressure from environmentalists, from bird societies, and from local grassroots groups. The local Maasai communities, whose whole livelihood is linked to the health of that region, they've been essential to the protection efforts. They've emphasized that harming the lake harms wildlife and people.
But the threat is still there. It's fragile. A single shift in political priorities or even just climate change altering water levels could bring these mining proposals right back to the table.
The lake is perpetually vulnerable. Its delicate balance is maintained by this very specific, very precise interaction of geology, climate, and human choices. Preserving this habitat really requires constant vigilance against short-term industrial interests.
So when we bring it all together, the myth and the science, we started with nature's Medusa, this terrifying, instantaneous killer.
And we finish with something more like Earth's caustic mirror. The reality is so much more sophisticated. The same extreme chemistry, all driven by that one rare volcano that ensures the rapid preservation of dead animals. It's also the key ingredient that provides a protected, food-rich, chemically perfect nursery for millions of flamingos.
The truth of chemical extremes and delicate adaptation is far more remarkable than the fiction.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that often the truth in nature is far stranger and definitely more compelling than the simple horror stories we tell about it. And preserving that truth is vital.
And it really does leave you with a final thought, doesn't it?
It does. It's a thought about conservation that should stay with you. The lesser flamingo is currently classified as near threatened. Their overwhelming reliance on this one, single, chemically unique, volatile habitat Lake Natron, highlights a catastrophic conservation risk. When the fate of an entire species hangs on a delicate, geologically driven chemical balance that could be destroyed by a single industrial decision, well, we have to consider how profoundly responsible we are for protecting these truly one-of-a-kind places. It makes Lake Natron a place to fight for, not just a place to marvel at in a photograph.
That's it for this episode of Brain Binge. If you enjoyed getting your mind twisted tonight, do me a favor, comment, like, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. Got a weird fact, mystery, or place you want an episode about? Drop it in the comments. I read as many as I can, and I'm always hunting for new ideas. Thanks for listening, and thanks for letting your brain binge with me for a while. Stay well, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.